What is going on, Bucs fans? Back here again with another edition of the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. 2 for this week. I'm your host, JC Allen, of course, and we're going to go where we always go with this second pod and behind enemy lines. Bucs are coming off a bye week. Their opponents coming off a bye week. We'll get into everything about New York Giants, the drama unfolding there with the whole Daniel Jones situation, what his teammates are, what the feeling is in the locker room. We've got a special guest who's boots on the ground that give us maybe some inside information, what the offenses look like, what the defenses look like, obviously keys to the game, and then our final score predictions as well. We'll get into all that and more after the break.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Pirate Parlay.
Battle intercepted, picked off in the end zone. Bucs are going to beat the Chiefs. We're the champions of the world.
The sickest Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. It's going to be sick.
Welcome back on the other side. Again, thank you for tuning into the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. I'm your host, JC Allen. Before we get started, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, turning on notifications, telling a friend, hit a little copy, the little share button, share it to some people you know. I'll get this out in front of more, as many people as we can. Helps the algorithm, helps us get more Bucs fans, like in front of more Bucs fans like you guys. So we got a special edition of this podcast as we do every week. We go behind enemy lines. Proud to have on this next guest. She is the publisher at SI Giants, fellow SI writer over here. She also is the host of the Locked On Giants podcast. Her name is Patricia Traina. Excited to have her on. Patricia, how are we doing today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Finally, it felt like that bye week was forever. Kind of this week snuck up on me. It kind of threw me out of my rhythm of my weekly pieces. I'm like, oh, it's already Tuesday. I need to get this stuff going. But football's back, and big things are at stake, I think, for both teams. More so the Bucs for playoff wise, but the Giants for organizational stability, it looks like too there. So let's kind of start with that. Obviously, the benching of Daniel Jones is a big story. He hasn't played well after getting that massive contract last year, tore his ACL in week 9, but that was after suffering a neck injury that knocked him out in week 5 up until week 9, and came back and just has not played well. There's been spotty play from him. He looked really good in Brian Daboll's offense the first year, career highs and pretty much everything. But this year you just kind of saw a regression. They finally bench him, and instead of going to their backup, who they spent $5 million on, and we all saw on Hard Knocks how excited they were to get him after losing Tyrod Taylor, they skip over him to Tommy Cutlets, Tommy DeVito. So what is going on with the New York Giants, with that quarterback situation? Why the skip over from Drew Lock to Tommy DeVito? I'm hearing and I'm seeing that it could be all financially related. What's the true story going on over there with the quarterback situation?
Well, it's been a very exhausting week emotionally. I mean, and I'm sure we'll talk about this a little later, but Daniel Jones saying goodbye basically to his teammates, to the Giant fan base, making a very heartfelt public statement. But yeah, I mean, you wanted to root for Daniel Jones. You saw what he could do in 2022 when he led the team to a 9-7-1 record and to the playoffs, in which he won a playoff game, the first time the Giants won a playoff game since 2011. The following year, he had the injuries, the neck injury, as you said, the torn ACL, plus there were injuries all across the board on the offense. The offensive line was just terrible. I mean, not a whole lot there in terms of support. Now, that's not to say that, you're going to excuse Daniel Jones from his part in it, but the odds were stacked against him. And then you get to this year, the team said, okay, look, we're going to upgrade the offensive line. We're going to get you a number 1 receiver. Brian Daboll's going to call the plays. And, the expectation was that he would maybe get back to being the quarterback he was in 2022, as opposed to the one he was last year. And it just hasn't worked out for any number of reasons. We're just not sure why. But so anyway, the decision was made on Monday to bench him. It is not a surprise that they chose to go that route. What is a surprise is they went with Tommy DeVito, as you mentioned, yes, over Drew Lock. Now, were finances part of it? Some people believe that finances were. Drew Lock, for those who don't know, signed a 1-year, $5 million guaranteed contract that also has about $3 million in incentives.
Bingo.
I don't think he would have made all those incentives had he started. I really don't believe that would have been the case, but it still would have probably been, some of the incentives would have been met, and the Giants don't have a whole lot of cap space to play with. Now, that said, what we're not discussing, and which was very much a factor, because I asked Drew Lock about this actually. Drew Lock was injured during the preseason. He got injured, I think, the first game they played, like I think 2 or 3 series in, and he wasn't able to play the rest of the preseason. He was limited in practice. That set him back in terms of showing what he could do with, in live reps, because practice reps, as you know, they're, they're controlled. They're in a controlled environment. So Drew Lock lost ground to Tommy DeVito. Tommy DeVito, this is his second season in this system, knows it a lot better, was able to go out and execute it in live situations. And here we are. He's going to get the start on Sunday. And, he's serious about it. Last year was kind of a little bit of circus around him with, everything, the agent, the cutlets, living at home, all that stuff. But Tommy DeVito is determined to, not that he didn't take it seriously last year, but he's determined to put all that the sideshows aside and focus on what really counts, which is football.
Yeah, a lot of people forget Tommy DeVito led them to 3 straight wins, including a really not a walk-off because it wasn't as time expired, but pretty much a last-minute win over the Green Bay Packers last year.
That was the big game. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's had some success. Problem is, unlike this year, there's no Saquon Barkley to kind of take some of that load off, and obviously Saquon doing crazy things with the Eagles now, which I'm sure pains Giants fans. If you can't tell behind my left shoulder, I do not have a lot of love for the Giants, so I am basking in their dysfunction right now. But they do have another running back who stepped in. They found him in the 5th round, Tyrone Tracy, who's been an absolute stud, leads the team in rushing yards. I think it's 535 yards rushing on the ground, and 3 touchdowns, and kind of unfound gem for them. He can take some pressure off. Obviously, their first round pick, Malik Neighbors, can take some pressure off. And as you mentioned, they did bring in some offensive linemen in there with Jermaine Illuminor and John Runyon as well. John Runyon Jr. rather as well. So, he's never thrown over 300 passes. The Bucs defense hasn't been great. What do you expect out of Tommy DeVito? What are Giants fans expecting out of Tommy DeVito? Has he had the 2 weeks to prepare? Is that something, or is he just kind of getting a 1 week to prepare? Has this internal conversations been going on since the bye week? When did he find out, and what do you expect out of him?
Yeah, so I asked Brian Dable when the decision was made, and they basically slept on it over the weekend. And, I think they had an idea towards the end of last week what they were going to do, but they slept on it, wanted to be sure. Dable wanted to make sure he really combed over the tape with a fine-tooth comb. The quarterbacks were notified on Monday morning. So you could make the case that DeVito has had 1 week really to get prepare for the game against the Bucs. That said, obviously, if you're a backup quarterback or a backup anything in the NFL, you want to stay ready because you never know when you're going to be called upon. And DeVito always made sure he stayed ready. And he's best friends with Drew Lock. They have their lockers next to each other, and the two of them oftentimes would talk shop. They would bounce ideas off of each other. I would see them with the iPad, and they'd be studying stuff. So DeVito always made sure he kept himself ready. And as I said, he had experience in this system last year. This isn't like he's coming in ice cold and he's never played in this system. So, you add all that in together, he should be able to pick up where he left off, but be better. And I've talked to some of the receivers in the locker room. I said, what have you noticed that's different about Tommy this year versus last year? Wan'Dale Robinson told me he throws a catchable ball. Jalen Hyatt, who had a big, who had really good success with DeVito throwing to him, said, he's seen better accuracy. So, really the only receiver in that room that hasn't had experience catching balls from DeVito is Malik Neighbors, since this is his first year. But, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, all had, good things to say about DeVito from the practice and how he has developed since last year.
Oh, well, one more thing about the quarterback, and then we'll move on here. Came out today that Daniel Jones is playing safety on the scout team. And then he comes out and he does, as you mentioned, gives his heartfelt, pretty much a goodbye. It almost sounded like a retirement speech, but we know that's not the case. He's going to be ready for his next opportunity. But it seems like the franchise and he himself is ready to move on. What are your thoughts on how the Giants handled all of this? And then having him going out, knowing that you're going to be out there yourself as a media member, and you're going to see him out in a scout team jersey, knowing that he's going to be, delegated to, and with Tim Boyle coming in, a healthy scratch for the rest of the season.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. It was kind of surprising that the Giants had him do that, play that safety role. It was in a walkthrough, so it wasn't like, it was a full speed practice play. But, this guy, I mean, if you don't feel for him, and look, I was calling for his benching. I was, his play absolutely frustrated me. So let me just put that out there so that nobody goes back and says, well, you said this and you said that. But, at the end of the day, we're all people. And I just feel like, having him play safety on the scout team, that was a slap in the face. I would not have, if you're going to do that, don't do that in front of the media, because that story obviously blew up. And, look, this poor kid, he's had his job taken away from him. And, again, there's some merit to say that it was deserving because he wasn't performing. But why do you want to pile up on him, especially if you go back and you look at what has happened to him since he came to this organization? And I've said this so many times that the team just wasn't ready to transition from Eli Manning to Daniel Jones. They didn't have a good offensive line. They didn't have a number one receiver for him. The only thing they really had going for them at the time in 2019 was Barkley. So, and then, to add insult to injury, Pat Shurmur, who was the head coach at the time, decided 2 games in, I'm going to put Daniel Jones out there because he can run, and this way I can open a whole new part of my playbook, and I'll put Eli on the bench. And it just seemed like the Giants never, there was always something that you could say, gosh, did Daniel Jones really have the best chance for success?
Right, and it'll be interesting to see what he does. You look at Baker, kind of similar situation. They had a little bit more pieces, but comes in as a high draft pick. Obviously, there are questions about taking Daniel Jones number 6 overall, but I agree. Insult to injury, it's not right. And again, we're media, so we are very impartial. It's our job to be, not to show any bias. And if there's something going on, then we're going to talk about it. I just wrote about how the Bucs have missed 46 tackles over the last 4 games, and I've just playing video games with some of the guys on that defense earlier today, but at this end of the day, one of the best part about this job is that you can develop those human relationships and connections with these guys. So when something like this does happen, you feel for him, whether it's warranted or not, you still feel bad for him. You feel bad for, the negative press, and even if you're the one writing it sometimes, because, we're all human, and, first and foremost, that's what these players are. But I do want to touch on the organization. The Brian Daboll, is he on the hot seat? Joe Schoen, is he on the hot seat? What are you hearing about that? Do they need to kind of put a stretch together for the end of the season? And then we'll get into offense, defense in our final takes.
Yeah, I think Joe Schoen is on, I like to say cement, very firm cement. We asked him about that a couple of weeks ago when he did his State of the Giants bye-week presser. And he didn't come right out and say, ownership told me I'm safe, but he's kind of said it without saying it. I do think, as far as Brian Daboll's concerned, I think his ground is a little shakier. If you had asked me this, a few weeks ago, I would have said, nah, he's coming back. Don't sweat it. But there's been a lot of things that you can point to that will make you second guess, is he, heading in the right direction, or has he regressed as a head coach? So that said, I do think that if I had to put a percentage on it, and I really don't like to do percentages because I'm a yes, no type of person, but I think Daboll probably has a 90% chance of being back here. The only way I don't see him back is A, if that locker room falls apart and splinters, which I don't think it has, or B, if they lose the rest of their games. Because look, if you finish with 2 wins, even 3 wins, which it was, less than what you finished the year before, that's a problem. That means you're going backwards.
Right. Right. All right. Yeah. It's one of these things where, there's questions about Todd Bowles. Is he on the hot seat? He needs a big stretch. And, they got Liam Cohen, who's starting to gain some traction as from maybe some head coaching interviews. And we saw that happen for them last year. Dave Canales going to the Panthers. So it's always this time of the year. It's always, watching some of the head coaches who are underperforming. But before we jump into the deep offensive side of the ball, I want to just shout out one of my sponsors here at Pirate Parlay, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise. Guys, it's going to be such a blast from March 7th to 10th, leaving out of Fort Lauderdale, going to Key West, Bimini, Bahamas. It's going to be so much fun. So many players are on this as well. Jordan Whitehead, Brad Johnson, Trey Palmer, as you can see, but Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedeke, Kalijah Cansey, Yaya Diaby, Zion McCollum, Mike Allstott, A-Train, Derek Brooks will be there, and more, and so many more, plus a special appearance by the band O-Town, who's going to be doing a few performances for Bucs fans as well. It's going to be so much fun, not only just with the players and the band on there, but also the sail-away parties, trivia contests, bingos, cocktail parties, player panels, thrilling water volleyball games that they have against each other and against the crew, theme parties, and so much more that keep the fun going all cruise long. They've got a casino. They've got a build your own old-fashioned bar. There's so much to do, so much to see, and these parties is the opportunity to get up close and personal, not like a autograph line where you rush through. You get to really talk to these guys, get to know them off the field, as they are as players too. So don't miss your chance to celebrate with your team, with Bucs fans from around the country, make new friends, and obviously your favorite Bucs players. Check out Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise. All the information's in the bio. Tickets are on sale till December 11th, so it's getting close to the cutoff date. You guys want to get there. Get those tickets. Christmas, significant other, family, children, whatever. Get your tickets now. Tampa Bay Buccaneers Cruise. It's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you guys on there for sure. It's going to be a lot of fun. So let's jump into this offense. Obviously, we talked about the quarterback situation because as the quarterback goes, the offense goes. But, the Giants, when you look at them, not too great on offense. They're ranked 24th in the league. Only 309 yards per game. Their passing offense is not doing as well either. They're ranked 26th in the league with 189 yards. They're hoping that they're going to turn around with a guy like Tom DeVito coming in. But their running game has been all right, middle of the pack, 119 yards per game on the ground. But the offense, you look at the offense, it's dead last. They're scoring 15.6 points per game. Their red zone offense is dead last, 39%. Surprisingly, their third down offense isn't bad. They're 19th with 37.3%. But they inputted all these resources. Number one wide receiver. They got a running back that came out of nowhere. They put some resources in the offensive line. They have leftover players like Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt. They brought in Devin Singletary. Has it all just been Daniel Jones at quarterback? Does this offense have the recipe to kind of turn this around and put themselves in a better position? Or is, numbers don't lie?
Well, I mean, the Bill Parcells used to say you are what your record says you are. So, the stats, they are what you say you are. Now, that said, I don't want to dump on Daniel Jones, because again, I feel bad for the guy, but, how many deep passes did he miss? How many times should he have thrown the ball maybe a split second or two earlier than he did, only to have his receiver, either miss the ball or have to come back to the ball? I mean, one of the things, Brian Daboll always talks about when you ask him what's wrong with the offense, lack of deep plays, the red zone offense, of course, being an issue. And, and it's not all Daniel Jones. I think the Giants lead the league in drop passes. I want to say it's like 37 or 47, something like that. So they lead the league in drop passes. Some of the play calling has just been like, what are they doing? But, the problem, I see it, the execution, and it starts with the quarterback. Daniel Jones, for whatever the reason, just his post-snap processing was painfully slow. He would be a split second too late. I mean, look, when was the last time anybody saw Daniel Jones hit a receiver in stride on a consistent basis? A lot of times you see those receivers stop, catch the ball, and by the time they stop, catch it, the defender is right in their face, or they have to come back to the ball. So, the accuracy was a big issue there as well. So hopefully, Tommy DeVito is a little better at that, at hitting these guys in stride and everything. But yeah, it's not just that part of the thing. Like I said, you can't have pre-snap penalties, you can't have the drop passes, and my gosh, the play calling's got to be a little bit better, I think.
Let's break down where it all starts too, right? Protection up front. They did add the resources. We talked about it with Illuminor and John Ryan. They did get John Michael Schmitz. He's in the final year of his deal. Evan Neal, they drafted him, I think 2 years ago or 3 years ago now in the second round at right tackle. They are missing Andrew Thomas, so they paid a boatload of money to. And they also got Greg Van Roten. What's been going on with that offensive line? Again, we're not trying to dump on Daniel Jones, but we know him for his ability to scramble, get out of the pocket. Obviously, everyone has that picturesque moment of him breaking free and almost getting to the end zone. But how is the offensive line held up? Have teams been able to take advantage of them? And if so, is it more in pass protection? Are they getting enough push in the run game? Obviously, like I said, they're doing pretty well in the run game, but who's been the weak link that teams have been trying to target, and what's been the overall feel for the offensive line this season? Because as you mentioned, it was really bad last year. Multiple injuries, guys playing all over the place. We got Ben Bredesen down here who, didn't have the best season, but asked to play left guard, right guard, center, switching all over the place all season. Couldn't really find consistency there. Has it been a turnaround? They obviously put money and resources into it. Has it paid off?
Yes and no. It has, in that, last year, the interior of the offensive line was probably the weakest link. There was far too much pressure coming up the gut. That has sort of settled down a little bit. John Runyon Jr. Has played well. Greg Van Roten has been hit and miss at times. I think he's been banged up too. John Michael Schmitz, who they drafted last year, steadily improving, still not probably where they want him to be, but he's on the upswing. Now, they did flip Jermaine Illuminor from right tackle over to the left side because, once Andrew Thomas went down, they realized, hey, we don't have a solid left tackle option here. So they had to flip Illuminor over. They put Evan Neal back at right tackle. Evan Neal is a really, really good run blocker. In his first game back since 2023, he was solid. I think he only gave up one pass pressure in the game against Carolina. So he was solid in pass protection, his run blocking. I mean, he is a people mover, so that was encouraging to see. So overall, has the offensive line been better than last year? Absolutely. Has it been, like a brick wall, like Philadelphia's offensive line? I wouldn't quite go that far because, Daniel Jones did get hit a lot. Some of that was his doing. I think about 20% of the quarterback pressures he had was his responsibility for holding the ball too long. But for the most part, you can say that the offensive line this year is light years ahead of what it was last year.
All right, let's move out to the sexy positions now. And obviously the Giants went sexy early this year, much to the chagrin of Joe Schoen's son, who wanted him to move up for Jaden Daniels. But Malik Neighbors is still a great consolation prize. He's been amazing. We talked with the media today and said, I don't care who's throwing it, I just want the ball. And that's what you want. You saw that dog in him too during Hard Knocks as well. He just wants the ball. Give me the ball. If you don't give me the ball, I'm I'm not a diva, but give me the ball. What has he done though for this team, but not just for, himself, but also elevating the play of guys like Slayton and Robinson and Hyatt as well?
Yeah, I mean, he's the type of guy who will draw multiple defenders down the field. So, now you don't have to worry about, Slayton getting doubled or other guys getting doubled. Malik Neighbors is drawing all this attention. Now it's up to the guys underneath to get their one-on-one battles won. So, that you have that. And also Malik Neighbors, can take the top off of a defense. If you look at how they deploy their receivers, basically they keep Wandale as their, slant guy, over the middle type guy, pick up the yards, the yards after the catch guy. Whereas, Slayton's can be a deep threat. Obviously, Jaden Hyatt could be a deep threat. He hasn't played that much, but I think we'll see a lot more of him, moving forward. And Malik Neighbors, who, by the way, this is interesting. They haven't sent him on as many deep balls as you would think. But where he has been really good and where this syncs up with Tommy DeVito is when you throw to him outside the numbers, he has had more production outside the numbers than he has, anywhere else on the field. So Tommy DeVito, that's actually a strength of his, throwing to guys outside the numbers. So that should sync up really nicely. And I'm curious to see how, that all comes together and if we see any kind of change in Malik Neighbors' production.
We'll jump to the running backs really quick and also touch on Theo Johnson. I know Bellinger is the, de facto starter, but I know they really like Theo Johnson. How has he progressed? And then you lose Saquon Barkley. You bring in Devin Singletary, and I think you expected him to be the guy, at least, this year, a very friendly contract for the next 2 years. And then Tyrone Tracy Jr. comes out of nowhere. How surprised were they about this kid? Obviously, they liked him in the draft process, but, as a 5th-round pick coming in here, doing what he's doing, just talk about what he's been able to do as a running back and kind of in that tandem with Singletary and what with him.
Yeah, great kid, by the way. I mean, he's into bowling. It's interesting. I tell you that because he and I always talk about bowling. I actually went bowling this past weekend, and we were comparing notes on our games. So that was kind of cool. Tyrone Tracy, a former wide receiver. He played receiver, I think, until I want to say his last year of college. He hasn't been a running back very long, but he's been able to parlay what he learned as a running back with, weaving in and out of traffic to the running back position. And, great vision, very decisive with the ball in his hands, not afraid to lower his shoulder and run over somebody. I don't have his numbers in front of me, but I know his yards after contact, I want to say, are hovering around 3, if I'm not mistaken. The kid is just, whereas with Saquon Barkley, it was more feast or famine when he was here with the Giants. Tracy is more of a steady chain mover, I think. And I'm not trying to put Saquon down, mind you. I'm just saying, Saquon early in his career, it was like go for the home run ball or it was nothing. And there were always yards that he could have had in those first few years when he was with the team. Tracy seems to understand, look, I'll just take what I can get. And, as long as I keep moving us forward as opposed to backwards, then I know we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, yards per contact, 3.22 after contact. I think him and I want to say Bucky Irving are right there neck and neck as the guys who are, turning out a lot of yards after contact. Yeah, Bucky 3.78. They're both hovering around the same, 363 yards. No, 400 and no, that's not right. 492 yards for Bucky Irving, and then Tyrone Tracy's got 545. So yeah, I mean, both of these guys are doing great things their rookie years as 4th and 5th round draft picks. We'll jump over to the defensive side. Before that, we definitely want to thank one of our other sponsors here, FanGo Tickets. Guys, this is a great ticket agency. They're local after the hurricane. Again, I stress, still continue to support local businesses, but they're your number one source for live events in Tampa Bay. If you're tired of getting blitzed by the big ticket companies, turn to FanGo, your exclusive, locally owned ticketing and operated Tampa Bay ticketing partner that offers fans like you full transparency. They prioritize fair pricing and no hidden fees so Tampa fans can enjoy events without unexpected costs. I'm telling you, when they tell you that, you literally see the ticket prices, you see the taxes and fees, and you see what they're making off each sale. Full transparency. Visit fangotickets.com for unbeatable prices, personalized seat selection, and local partnerships that will take your game day to the next level. If you guys watch this podcast or you're new, you know that FanGo is in the process of forming sponsorships and partnerships with deals around with local restaurants, businesses, parking, and eventually hotels where you can just one-stop shop everything right in one set. Where you get your tickets, you get your hotel, you get your parking, and you also get reservations at a restaurant where you'll get a combo for a beer and a burger for like $15. You don't have to wait for a table. You don't have to go and stand up in the bar area. You have a dedicated spot seat reservation to go in pregame and have a little bit of fun before the game and make a whole experience out of it. So check out FanGo Tickets. They're doing some great things. Check them out on Instagram, check them out on Twitter and obviously, or X, and check them out at the website, fangotickets.com. Onto the defensive side of the ball now, which is where the Giants have been much better. Their total defense is right in the middle of the pack, 17, allowing 331 yards per game, 23 touchdowns on the season. The pass defense is what has been really good this season. They're ranked 4th in the league, only allowing 184 yards per game and 12 touchdowns. Running defense hasn't been as good, but still it hasn't been it just hasn't been good. I'm lying to you. it's 29th in the league, 147 yards per game. They haven't let up as many touchdowns as some of these other teams, with only 8 on the ground. But their bread and butter has been the pass defense, and we'll get into a big reason why that's been the case too. Their scoring defense, they're right in the middle of the pack there at 16, pretty much right in the middle, only allowing 22 points per game. But when you're only scoring 15 points per game, you can see how they're 2-8 on the season. Then you look at other stats here on red zone defense, really good actually. They're 5th in the league on red zone defense, only allowing teams to convert touchdowns 46.4% of the time. And on third downs, they're really good as well. So 2 key downs, they're performing really well. 34.1% of the time they're letting teams convert on third down. And a big reason of that is because of the dogs up front. And boy, do they get after you. They are a lethal pack led by Dexter Lawrence. He's just an animal, probably one of the best defensive players in the game. Right now, I think this season it's Dexter Lawrence, Vita Vea, and there might be 1 or 2 others, and these guys are in a different class of themselves, but they made a big acquisition to trade for Brian Burns. They have former Buck Raheem Nunez-Roches. We love him. He's awesome, awesome personality. I'm sure you're enjoying him in the locker room up there. And they got Azeez Ujulari and some linebackers who can do some things too. So 36 sacks in the league, 2nd in the league. Talk about this defensive front, this pass defense, and how much of the front 7 has really been behind the success the defense have had.
Yeah, I mean, you rattled off all the names. I mean, look, you look at some of the stats, and some people, I kind of chuckle a little bit when people say, "Oh, what's Brian Burns doing? He was overpaid." Sometimes it's not about the numbers that these guys have. It's the influence they have that opens maybe opportunities for other guys. Dexter Lawrence talks about that all the time, how, it might look like he's getting all the glory, but maybe, the guy next to him, Raheem Nunez-Roches is actually, being the catalyst for him to get a sack or something like that. So, you got a bunch of guys who, the Giants purposely built that front 7 because they did have a very young defensive secondary coming in. It was a big concern. It kind of still is a concern, even though, the numbers aren't that bad right now. But, the front 7 has really been the key. And, we also got to throw in the linebackers, Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. Micah McFadden has just been, compared to last year when he was like the team leader and missed tackles, he's really cleaned up that part of his game. And he's, I think, amongst the team leaders in tackles. Okereke's role, it looks like, has changed just a smidge. So he's not quite making the impact he had last year, but he's still a very, very good player and just very active and around the ball. And that has helped the back end of the defense because, as you know, when you have the front 7 who can get after the quarterback and, disrupt things, that makes the life of the back 4 a lot easier.
Trying to have nuanced conversations with fans is it can be difficult, but that's why we do our podcast, right? To try to educate fans. And for people who say that, you look at Brian Burns, he's got 39 total pressures on the year and 6 sacks. Last year, he only had 40 pressures on 9 sacks, and there's still plenty of season for him to continue to rack up those pressures, but it's about the things that they do that allow other people to do. And sometimes a lot of people just box score watch and they see this and they see that, and they're like, oh, well, it was a waste of money. Why do we make this move? Are you kidding me? This guy's not doing well. And they don't really kind of look at the fine details and see this is why this person's doing better, and this is why this person, because of this one presence. So totally with you on that. You mentioned Okereke and McFadden. They've been playing really well, and that front 7 as a whole has allowed the back end to really kind of, because the balls are coming out so quick, it's allowed them to play tighter coverage. One thing it hasn't allowed them to do, though, is get their hands on balls. They only have 1 interception right now. If the season ends and if this trend continues, it's going to be the lowest in NFL history, the interception rate for this team. What has it been? And I was a huge Deonte Banks fan coming out of the draft. Really liked him out of Maryland. And obviously, Drew Phillips is probably, one of the best corner. I mean, you're looking at cornerbacks, you look at Tyke Smith for the Bucs, Quinyon Mitchell, and Drew Phillips. I mean, those three have been probably the best guys out of this draft in the secondary so far. Just talk about that secondary. Where are the interceptions and just kind of the role that they've played on keeping the Giants and allowing the Giants to have the fourth best pass defense in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned the youth of that defensive secondary, but it's kind of weird because Tyler Newman, the safety, one of the starting safeties, he came in with a reputation as being a ball hawk, and I guess it's not as easy to get your hands on balls at this level as it is at the college level. And here's the weird thing: you mentioned the Giants only have one interception. That was by a linebacker, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was by. It was. I think it was by Bobby Okereke. Yeah. So it's kind of weird if you think about it. So regarding that secondary, at times they've been kind of inconsistent. I think Deonte Banks, let's take him for example. I think everybody knows now about how he was benched against Pittsburgh, how he's had some problems and whatnot. The thing that I see with Deonte Banks, and don't sweat, I have a little doggy too. I know that's a cat. I have a little dog as well.
Oh yeah, he's always
trying to climb into my lap.
He's always.
So anyway, Deonte Banks is the impression I get, it's not a talent issue with this kid. He's got the talent. I think what happens with him sometimes is if he has a bad play or he gets beat, it rattles his confidence. Now, he won't admit to that. I'm just giving you what I've observed and what I've heard from talking to people. So sometimes when that happens, it's like you start doubting yourself. And when you're doubting yourself out there and everything's coming at you at 100 miles an hour, you're prone to make mistakes. So, the thing with Deonte Banks, I think, is he's just, if his confidence is taking a hit, he's got to toughen up in that regard. He's got to, as Drew Phillips said, when he was talking about his own play a couple weeks ago, he said, I got to grow up. And growing up is being able to stare adversity in the face and say, okay, you got me this time, but next time you ain't getting me again.
Right. Yeah. And it was Darius Massow, the rookie linebacker.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought it was Darius. It might have been him. Yeah. I think Okereke caused the tip and he caught it.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where goldfish mind, we talk about, with every player, especially cornerback, I think is the one you need to have it the most. Obviously, offensive line's a big one too, where, you let up a pressure, you got to move on from it. You don't have a good rep, you got to move on from it. But hi, buddy. I'm in the middle of a podcast. Cornerback is one of those big ones that you have to kind of be able to move on from it. So let's jump into, and I know I'm keeping you a little bit longer. I do apologize. But let's jump into our keys to the game here. Before we do that, another quick shout out to one of our sponsors, Mosley Heating and Air. When Florida heat hits you hard, trust Mosley Heating and Air to keep you cool and comfortable with over 25 years of experience. Their family-owned business knows what it takes to keep your home's HVAC system running smoothly. Need to repair a new system or maintenance plan? Now's the best time to do it while we're getting this cold front. I say cold front, it's like 60 degrees. You're probably like, cold front. I'll give you a cold front.
Come up here.
Yeah, but they've got you covered. Call Mosley Heating and Air today at 813-230-3742 or visit them online at mosleyheatingandair.com. Mosley Heating and Air, where comfort meets reliability. I'm from right outside of Boston, so I know all about the cold. That's why I moved down to Florida to get out of that stuff. It's crazy though, because when it is 60 degrees, it's cold down here. Like 60 degrees up north, we're busting out our shorts, we're busting out our shirt tank tops and t-shirts. We're like, anyone want to go to the beach? You don't go swimming.
I won't. I actually 50 degrees and up, I won't wear a coat outside.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be unheard of down there, right?
It's crazy because 60 degrees, you're looking for your pants and your hoodie down here. Mm-hmm. But it's a different kind of cold. It's a wet cold, more humidity and stuff like that. But there's certainly a shock when I first moved down here. I'm like, why am I cold? It's 60 degrees. But I digress. Let's get back on track here with the keys to the game. If the Giants are going to win this game, what are they doing offense successfully?
Well, they've got to be more accurate with the ball, especially on some of these deep passes. Now, From what I understand, and I have the injury report here, it looks like you're not sure which cornerback you're going to have back.
Don
You've
McCollum
got,
is questionable.
yeah,
And Mikey
it looks
Smith
like Jamel Dean is working his way back. He's on his 21-day window open.
should be good.
Um,
Troy
seems
Hill
to be,
should be good.
yeah,
It's
so he should
Mikey
be good.
Smith and Zion
So
who
you
are
want to get some, you want to get some of these deep passes that basically have been missing from the Giants offense on a consistent basis. You want to start connecting on some of them. Get some of these chunk plays in there. Obviously running the ball is going to be important. I mean, the Bucs defense, if you look at the rankings would suggest that the Bucs defense has had some trouble of late, both against the run and against the pass. So, you want the run game, you want to get that going. You want to test it, especially, with Tommy DeVito taking over now. I'd be surprised if they have him come right out and start slinging the ball. I mean, get him into a rhythm as far as the game flow goes, and then start opening it up. So I think early on you might see the run game with Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, and then as like you said, after a series or two, then maybe they'll start to really open it up with the passing game.
Yeah, that's been the Bucs' Achilles heel. Miscommunication in the secondary has led to chunk plays and missed tackles. As again, I mentioned earlier, 46 missed tackles the last 4 games, about 11.5 per game is wild. But I mean, that's going to can't arm tackle at this level. You know that, especially a guy against Tyrone Tracy, he'll run you over. So those are the two things that they really need to do. But if the Bucs win this game on offense, what do they execute against this Giants defense?
Well, obviously, if they can run the ball against this Giants run defense, that's going to go a long way. I'm concerned about Mike Evans potentially matching up against Deonte Banks because, like I said before, Deonte Banks, who has basically traveled with the opponent's number one receiver in, I believe, every game except one. I forget which one it was, but I think it's every game except one. That's a matchup I am not too crazy about from a Giants perspective because Mike Evans is just – he's a beast, and he, hamstring or not, Mike Evans at 80% is better than some guys at 100%.
Right.
So that is a matchup I'm concerned with. I think the Giants are going to probably look to double him or just, they got to find a way to neutralize him. I don't think you could totally stop him. But what I look for obviously is can the Giants stop the run, which they have not been able to do successfully. There's always, I think in the Carolina game, I want to say there was 4 big running plays, including 3 on one drive. And we were sitting there going, what is going on with this run defense? And then, this goes without saying, but get after Baker Mayfield, get him off his spot, get him uncomfortable, because like any quarterback, if you make him uncomfortable, he's going to make a mistake, and you've got to be able to capitalize on those mistakes and just pounce on them, maybe pick up a loose ball, pick off a pass, whatever the case may be.
Outside of shutting down the Bucs run game and containing Evans, obviously this defense gets a ton of pressure, but the Giants defense will contribute to this win if they what else do they need to do in order to come out with a win?
The defense you're talking?
Yes, Giants defense.
Basically, they've got to get off the field on third down. That you mentioned before that the third down defense has been okay, but there have been times when they have made mistakes on third down, third and long and whatnot that has given the opponent a fresh set of downs. I think the other thing obviously is they've got to figure out how to limit the Bucs on first down, because if you start giving teams second and short, third and short, now those teams can do anything basically they want. And that's been part of the problem, the overall problem of the Giants defense is they're allowing too many yards on first down. I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but I think it's over 5 yards average on first down plays, whether it be run or pass. And you just can't do that. You just can't win games if you're going to give your opponent second and short, third and short, and let them say, okay, maybe we'll run it, maybe we'll pass it, maybe, who knows what we're going to do, but we've got options.
And the Bucs defense needs to do what? What do they need to do? Or what did they do to successfully shut down the Giants offense?
I think they've got to stop the run early because, like I said, if the Giants do go to the run game early, which I believe they will, given the change of quarterback, stop that early and then dare Tommy DeVito to beat you with his arm. I mean, Tommy DeVito, He can run. That's another reason why I think they chose him over Drew Lock, is because he's a little bit more athletic and mobile than Drew Lock is, which, means they don't have to throw out the RPOs and the zone reads and all that stuff. So that's going to be, that's something to keep an eye on. But, basically plug up the run, whether it's DeVito doing RPOs or zone reads or Tyrone Tracy or Devin Singletary, whoever it is, and say to him, okay, you think you're improved now, kiddo? Show us. And then see if he can't beat you with his arm.
Awesome. I love great analysis on the Giants offense, defense, the quarterback situation, the dysfunction and drama that's going on there. I appreciate your time. I'm going to end it with a score prediction. What do you have this game turning out to? I know we still have another day with like injury reports and stuff like that, so I hate giving them out early, but what do you have this leaning right now towards?
Oh gosh, I haven't gotten the score prediction right. I've come close a few times, but honestly, I don't think I could pick the Giants to win this game. I got to see better play across the board. Right. And I said I would not, and of course I broke what I said I was going to do because I picked them against the Panthers, right? I'm going to say Bucs 28, Giants 17.
I'm right there with you. I got the Bucs 27, the Giants 17. So I have the Giants getting on the board twice with a field goal. But again, you got to show me 15 points a game. I'm spotting you 2 extra points. The Bucs have scored, 20 to 24 points a game without Mike and Chris. They're getting Mike back. Again, the secondary is not that good. The biggest thing for me is Baker has to get the ball out. He's got to get the ball out quick because that Giants defense is going to be there quick. That front seven is gonna get after them. I think, Mike can, as you mentioned, take advantage of that matchup with Deontay. The biggest thing is Bucs got to tackle. They got to communicate well. They can't allow Malik Neighbors to beat them. They have to be sound in the middle of the field. You get guys crossing routes and you get the guys confused. And they had a point this year where Yaya Diaby was matched up on Drake London, and another point where KJ Britt was matched up on, I don't even know, but it was it was not a good look. And they've got to make sure that they are on their P's against Ricky Pearsall, or JJ Russell against Ricky Pearsall. That's not a matchup you want. They've got to be on their P's and Q's. And if they do that, I think they can win this game and get that jump start going. I think they've got to get out to a fast start, keep the Giants playing catch up all game. You got to score close to 30 points. You got to show that, hey, we've improved with Mike back, and make it a game where they're not going to be able to get it. So you can play your game, run the ball late and just kind of run the clock out. Patricia, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. I love learning about football, whether it's the team I cover, the team I root for, or the teams around the leagues. I feel like I know the Giants now better. And I'm more prepared for this game. I hope you Bucs fans are more prepared for this game, what to look for, what players to look for to make an impact. I got to ask you before I let you go, and I'm going to ask you to promote yourself. How much fun are you having with Nacho in the locker room?
He's great. I love Nacho. I mean, he's got such an outgoing, bubbly personality. And I remember the first time I met him, I said to him, I know Nacho's your nickname. I says, is that what your friends call you? He goes, that's what you can call me. So he says, and yes, that's what my friends call me. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, he's great. And they got Aaron up there too. Aaron's a good guy as well.
And you guys got Shep.
We got Shep and
Brett. Love that guy. Love him, love him. I miss him so much. What an amazing human being he is.
Yeah, he's so smooth too with it too, and it looks like it's worked out. Obviously, Stinny's not playing a big role for you guys. Shep stepping into a big role, Bredesen obviously in the big role, Nacho in a big role. So it looks like the little swap there worked out well for both teams. I appreciate you coming on again. Go ahead, promote yourself. Where can they find you? Where can they find all of your work? And again, appreciate having you on here, learning more about the Giants.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was a blast talking with you. You can find my written work on New York Giants on SI. The URL is simple, New York Giants on SI, spell out New York. The podcast I host is Locked On Giants, that we publish Monday through Friday, and some special shows here and there on the weekends as warranted. So you can find that over on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. On social media, you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Patricia_Traina. I'm also on Blue Sky now, Patricia Traina, no hyphens or anything like that. I'm on Instagram at Patty Traina, PATTITRAINA. I am also on Threads under that same handle. And of course, Facebook. So
Yeah, it's so difficult.
I'm
I'm
all
like,
over the place.
I'm in all of those too. I'm
Gotta
just like,
be.
I don't have time for Threads. I don't have time. I need an app where I can post something and it goes to all of
That's
them.
what I have, though.
You have an app that does that?
Yep.
You got
I don't think it posts yet the Blue Sky, but I do
email.
have an app that does all that stuff. So
You got to email me that app after this because I need to know what it is. All right, that's going to do it for us for here. That's going to do it for us here at the Pirate Parlay Podcast on the Sick Podcast Network. Again, I'm your host, JC Allen, Patricia Traina. Very appreciative of her. Before you guys go, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Everyone listening on all the podcast streaming platforms, Apple, Spotify, whatever. Appreciate you guys. Definitely migrate over here. Come catch a live show once in a while. We'll definitely love to take all your comments and questions. But until post game, I will talk to you guys then. We'll have a post game show, and we're out of here. That's gonna do it for us. Peace out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Pirate Parlay on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.